Hi, guys. Welcome to Parawomenradio. I'm Amy. Tonight, we are hopping on the old Parawomenradio party prison bus again and going to Dodge Correctional. There has been much speculation about what life is like for old Chrissy Poo in prison. Is he living in isolation, spending only a few hours out of his cell each week? Or is he working, as he claimed in an interview, slicing lunch meat for his fellow inmates who have dubbed him the a meat man? Some sources even suggest he is working as a custodian, which mean he is in general population. No? But then how are they keeping him safe in there? Well, I don't know. The questions are endless, and this is just the intro. Tonight, we have a retired prison correction guard with 15 years of experience who rose to the rank of Sergeant Watch Commander joining us. He's here to spill the beans on what the prison staff really think about Chris Watts. And I would imagine you don't rise to Sergeant Watch Commander without knowing what the inmates are thinking about him as well. So get ready for all the juicy details and more on tonight's Parawomenradio. While we wait for everyone to paddle on over to Watts Island with us, I'm going to roll some credits. Special shout out to my replay crew. Are you ready to hear about CW in prison? I know I am. Hi, guys. Welcome to Parawomenradio. I'm Amy.
Angel flew down to a tiny house on the edge of hell. Ain't no garage or a swimming pool, just a sad old friend who thinks he's cool. Angel knocks twice. She says, "Let me in." And then his withered old face says, "Where have you been? Where have you been?" She says, "Hello. Aren't you tired of this? Tired of being here in the dark like this? Like this?" And he says, "No, I don't miss the light. I don't need a thing. Can you say tonight? Can you stay?"
Hi, guys. Happy Friday. I'm so happy to see all of you. How's everyone doing? I see Kim and I see Thunder Chick and I see Heaven Lee in chat. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. I am doing okay. I am really excited to talk about Chris Watts tonight, and I am even more excited about our guest. But before I bring him on, if we could get that algorithm dance party that I like to do, just start warming up your fingers. Just dance them right up to the hearts and thumbs up button. Just start clicking them like nobody's watching, but the algorithm, it's always watching. It's just a free way to help me dance out into the algorithm, party out there, and bring more fun people back to our party. It's free and it's really appreciated. We're coming to you tonight on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Hi, everyone. And hi to everyone in the replay crew. You know I love you. Before I begin to welcome our guest, also, I just want to set some guidelines for chat and comments. Two things can be true at once, and two people can have differing opinions and still get along. So be kind to one another. It's okay to sometimes agree, not to disagree. Um, so I want to welcome to the show Dan. I think it's Scheisel, ex Sergeant Watch Commander of the Wyoming Department of Correction. Dan was a SORT team member and worked as a hostage negotiator. He spent his career working maximum security, and as a side note, he worked the execution of Mark Hopkins in January of 1992. Everyone, please welcome Dan to the show. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Amy. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. How are you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself tonight?
Oh, I'm okay. I can't complain. I've been really excited about tonight's show. I love to talk about prison. I don't know if anyone picked that up on my channel or not, but I like to talk about prison stuff, and I like to talk to the prisoners, and I like to talk to the staff. Well, actually, you're I think my first staff person, and I've been
All
wanting to
right.
talk to a staff member like really bad, so I'm so happy that you're here.
Excellent.
I see Crystal Burns in the his house, and I see Nightbot. How you doing, Nightbot? Try to keep the conversation to a minimum. You were out of control the other day. Just kidding. I need to learn to figure out how to manage my Nightbot a little bit better. Hi, Jay. How are you doing? Heavenly is my moderator, and thank you, Heavenly, for being in the moderator seat for me. I love you and I appreciate you so much. So, Dan, I thought that we would start out with, oops, hold on. I thought we would start out talking about you a little bit before we got into Chris, so that maybe the audience can kind of get a feel for who you are and why are you talking about this, and like, who are you to be talking about this, and that kind of good stuff. um
Sure.
so let's start out with, how did you get into corrections?
Well, it was really by accident. My father was an associate warden at the Wyoming State Penitentiary. He was the physical plant and logistics manager for them. And I was going to the University of Wyoming, and I decided I wanted to take a year off. I'd had knee surgery in the spring. I had a fraternity house volleyball accident, had knee surgery. I was kind of worn out. I wanted to take a year break, upgrade my car, trade vehicles, and then go back. I just need a little time off. And I ended up getting a job at the penitentiary. I live in a small town. There's not a lot to do,
Hmm.
for employment. And I thought, okay, well, I'll work there for a year, save up some money, chill out, get myself ready to go back to school. And the day I went to pick up my uniforms, my car broke down on the way out there. And
Oh.
so my father co-signed for a new Chevy Beretta with me, and I got off shift. I got off shift the first day I worked at the penitentiary, went up and picked a new car up, and then I figured I was in it for at least 4 years, and I ended up making a career out of it.
So, how old were you when this all went down, approximately?
I started at 20.
Oh, so yeah, that's young. It shocks me to think like a 20-year-old is in charge of people that have done unimaginable things. It just shocks me, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. Typically at that time they didn't like to hire officers who were under about 25 and who weren't married because they wanted them to have a more stable home life, which I had. I didn't have any baggage, but they wanted them to be a little more mature.
Uh-huh.
However, since my father had worked there for quite a while by then, I knew most of the, well, I knew them all. Never mind, the warden, etc. I mean, my parents went to church with the warden, the captain out there, and other persons, and they felt I was mature enough at that age to work for them.
Well, you had somebody vouching for you, so
I did, yes.
that was amazing. Your dad must have thought highly of you to think like a 20-year-old that, is not married, not a 25-year-old, and, not particularly settled in any means that you could handle something like that.
Yeah, yeah, he believed in me. They always, well, another associate warden out there was my father's best friend, and he'd known me since I was about 12 years old. And he always joked when I was in high school that I was 17 going on 35. So he thought highly of me too. So they figured I could handle it and I wouldn't do anything stupid to make them look bad because they had gotten burned by others who didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah. So in your term there, you said that you worked in a few different arenas. Could you tell me what is SORT? SORT. What is that?
It
The
is,
SORT team.
well, basically, it's the penitentiary version of the SWAT team. It's the Special Operations Response Team.
Oh, okay. So you wore the headgears and had the sticks and stuff,
Yeah, we would have
or not
a
sticks, but
pepper.
those things that push on them,
Oh yeah,
push
shields, and
shields. That's what. Yeah.
we would have shields. A pepper fogger, they call it, which puts out pepper spray. It looks like a fire extinguisher, except it comes out at a really high volume for crowd control. Full hockey gear, basically, head to toe riot gear, stuff like that. It was interesting. I liked
Yeah,
it.
that.
I was young and stupid, and it was an adrenaline rush. I'll admit that.
Yeah. And what year was this approximately that you were doing this?
That was, let's see, I went on sort in 1991,
Oh, okay.
and then
Hmm.
I had to get off that in 1995 when I got promoted to corporal. I made a rank, and to make rank there, you'll take a written exam and an oral interview, and I decided to do that. And so the change of position into more supervisory roles, then I had to leave that part behind.
At what part in your career were you working as the hostage negotiator? Because I've always thought that was a fascinating job. That fascinates me.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the chess game, the verbal judo they call it,
Hmm.
of trying to
Yeah.
negotiate a situation. I started that when I was a corporal in 1996 when I
So
started
that
doing
came
that.
with your corporal position being part of that.
No, it was optional. That's just when I decided to take advantage of they had emergency preparedness training for supervisors, and then you could go a level above that if you were interested, and I was.
And what type of things would you negotiate? Could you like give me an example of like a situation that happened?
Yeah, and I didn't get to negotiate this one, but we did have a situation happen, which I
Hmm.
responded to when we finally took down the offender. We had an inmate who had gotten loose in the segregation unit, and he ended up barricading 9 staff members in the control center there. You had a control center surrounded by a rotunda and then a corridor going up to the main control center for our maximum security unit, and we had to go in and take him down, and we had a negotiator on scene for that, and we finally ended up throwing a flashbang grenade on him, and then I was part of the team who went in and took him down.
Wow.
Yeah, he had taken a waist chain. He had grabbed the waist chain off himself when he was being unrestrained after going up for a disciplinary hearing, and started swinging it at officers, and they retreated and ran into the control center. And then the inmate had thrown water all over the floor of the rotunda because there was a big sink out there for our inmate janitor to wash off chow trays that came back from the different corridors in segregation because they're fed in cell. And we had inmates who were painting that area at the time, so the offender took all of the paint cans and opened them and threw them all over the floor to try to slow down the response team to go get him, but we got him.
Oh gosh, that must have been messy.
It was,
It's-
yes.
And scary too.
It was the last day before I went on a vacation, and they used my personal handcuffs on him. And I was glad I got them back before I went home, because in 2 days that inmate broke 3 pairs of handcuffs in the cell.
Was he like really big and strong?
He was 6'3" and about 240. Yeah, he's a
Did
large
you
man.
ever have any episodes where you like literally were really fearing for your life?
Only one time where it really sank in. It was the night of June 26th, 1997. One of
Hmm.
my good friends, Corporal Wayne Martinez. We were the same rank. I was a night shift corporal and he was day shift corporal. And corporals are your first line supervisors. So first rank up from entry level officer. And he relieved me that day because I was working midnights, and I went home, and he was murdered that day in a failed escape attempt. And then going in that night um, was hard. They had the whole place locked down, and it's dark, obviously. And it was pretty spooky. I wasn't necessarily in fear for my life, but it kind of hit home. Then I was a 27-year-old by then, and it hit home that, yeah, this is real, you know. And the guy,
Yeah.
we had graduated from high school together. I knew him since we were 12 years old. We had talked earlier in our careers. We were on the same shift when we started at night, joking
Hmm.
around and talking about how our futures might look out there. And he said to me, "Well, I imagine if we work here long enough, we'll see a staff member killed, but I sure hope not." And I always think about it. It turned out to be him.
Isn't that so strange how things like that happen? Like you're just talking about it and then it's that person.
It is, yes, yeah. It's still hits hard, and I still have dreams about him once in a while. Just the funny things he used to say and stuff, and they'll be vivid. I'll wake up like I just seen Wayne, and it's been since 1997, but it happens.
Hmm. Did you ever make any friends with any prisoners?
Oh yes, yes, actually, and we have a saying for that. It's called They call it friendly but not friends, because you still have to realize they're on a different side than you. And most
Hmm.
of them, if they really wanted out badly enough and you were in the way, they would kill you to do it. But you do develop those relationships with them, like Mark Hopkinson, the gentleman who was executed. We were all friendly with him, and he told us, he said, "I'm not going to make anything hard on myself. Why would I?" He said, "My family never comes to see me. I see you guys every day."
Hmm.
And a lot
I
of lifer inmates would share the same philosophy. Why would I make it harder on myself? You know.
Yeah, I think like in all the docu series that I've ever watched of life inside, like the lifers are like all these young guys come in and they make it so hard on everybody. Like just
Exactly. Like, you give me
come.
35 or 40-year-old inmate who's done a little time and is serving life, he's the best one to be around because they get it
Yeah.
and they don't they don't act like jerks because they know that what they got is what they're gonna get.
Hmm.
You know,
I
make the
had to
best of it.
actually look up who Mark Hopkinson was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating, the whole thing
Yeah,
about the water dispute and the
yeah,
fighting. And
yeah. That case was going on when I was a child. I used to read about it in the local newspapers, and then I worked there, and the last time I saw him, I took him to the property room after a visit he had with his family. I had to sit in and make notes on the subject areas that they were discussing. And I took him back to the property room so he could get boxes to pack his things up and got him a chow tray. And I put him down inside the cage on death row, and he said, "Oh, I'll see you later." And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, well, next time I see you, you won't be seeing me. Because it was
yeah,
through one-way glass. One-way glass was the next time I saw him.
wow. So, how many people did he actually end up unaliving?
None.
None.
Himself,
Oh,
none. None. He did not do anybody himself.
oh, he hired it. He hired people to do it.
Did. Allegedly, he had an informant killed, and he got life for that. And then he was arranging. Oh, sorry, I have this backwards. He had an attorney's house bombed in Evanston, Wyoming, and the attorney and two family members were killed. He got life for that. And then he had an informant tortured to
Ah,
death, and he got death for that. And he arranged that from federal prison in California over the
okay.
phone.
That is coming back. It's all, yes, yes. I
Yeah,
know who
it's
this is.
convoluted. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a Charles Manson thing, basically. Physically himself, that they could finger him for, no unalivings.
Just like a Gypsy Rose.
Yeah, yeah, it was just he was just the kingpin behind it, and
He
he
didn't
told
commit
me
the killings like she says.
no, no, he told me that all his problems started when he was in college. He was a football star out of the Bridger Valley in Wyoming, got a scholarship to Arizona to play running back, and he had a knee injury and he started messing with steroids. That's what he told
Oh,
me. 'Cause I was
so
into,
he had point
he just got out of control with thinking he was omnipotent, the feeling of power, I guess,
uh-huh.
according to him. According to, because he knew I was into lifting weights. He used to call me Herc all the time for Hercules. Hey Herc, how you doing? And he'd slide me a Muscle and Fitness under the door to read when I had to watch Death Row and stuff like that. So, but he told me that's where his problem started. He got into that and some other drugs, allegedly.
It's
Now you know how that is.
it's so fascinating to me, like two things can just be true at once. Like this guy did
Mm-hmm.
something truly horrible, yet here he's sliding you a magazine because he knows you got a long shift.
Yeah, we used to bet. We used to place bets with each other on football games with the warden's permission, and we would bet either cans of tuna, which are sealed, of course, or push-ups. The warden used to bet in push-up challenges on football games, and then go
Uh,
pay up, or vice versa. It was just a thing. You got along with them, didn't break the rules, but I looked at it like I was doing life on the installment plan myself, just 8 hours at a time. So
mm-hmm.
I told them I'll give you what I get. If you want to be cool, we'll be cool together. You want to be a jerk, I can do that too. Just
What was
how
death
it is.
row like at the prison you were at?
Very quiet. We had when I started there, we had three inmates on death row, and what it was a short segregation wing with an extra cage in it, an extra iron cage that had actually come from what they call the Wyoming Frontier Prison, which is here in town. They got the bars and the gates scavenged from that one. and that one had 6 cells as opposed to the other wings that had 12 cells. And it had its own little control center down there, which the other wings don't. And it was quiet, just same. You
Was he
can't
the
do
only one? Was he the only one?
at the end. Yes, when he had his sentence carried out, finally, at that point in time, he was the only one.
He was the
Him. You
last
had
one that had that the DP carried out, right, in Wyoming.
he was, yes, he was, and he was the only one who had lethal injection carried out. When he was sentenced, Wyoming still had the gas chamber, which is in town here at the old penitentiary, which is a tourist attraction now. They
Mm-hmm.
had to, after when we moved penitentiaries to the one where I first started, then they had to change the statutes for the method of execution and then figure out all the procedures to do it. And they consulted with the state of Texas on that.
Oh,
My father and
so
his crew built the gurney for him to have his sentence carried out on, because he didn't have
oh,
one. It was uncharted territory for our state.
and it's interesting that was the only one too, right?
It is the only one that's been done that way, and it's the last one we've had in the state, although we still have that penalty here, but I don't see it getting carried out. It's
Is
a
there
lot of
anyone on
times.
death row right now in Wyoming?
No, the last one we had on death row ended up getting that commuted to life on appeal, and that was the gentleman who was responsible for the Little Miss case, which is very famous, where a girl went missing and they didn't find her car for. They found her body. They didn't find her car for about 30 years until somebody mentioned one time that they had seen him digging, and he lived in this little place, remote place outside of the county where I was born and grew up. And they went and exhumed this place, and they found her car. It was Dale Eaton is his name, and he is no longer on death row. So there's nobody right now.
Oh, I
Very famous
remember.
case. That was on Unsolved Mysteries and stuff too.
I don't remember that one, but maybe if I saw photos and stuff, I probably would, because I
Probably,
used to
yeah,
love watching Unsolved Mysteries.
yeah. That one happened in 1988. Just to give you a reference point.
Oh, okay. Mm. We were watching Cindy Watts on Wednesday, and she was
Hmm.
talking about death row and how like she didn't care if like he got it because nobody, it never gets carried out in Colorado. And I was just curious, in your opinion, is it nicer just and up until the moment, you have to have the death carried out, but is it nicer to be on death row or just out in general population, in your opinion?
In my opinion, especially given Mr. Watts' situation, he'd be better off on death row.
I think the same thing too, because it just seems safer and
It is, yes,
he
very
would
much
probably
so.
get more
And by
stuff for.
statute, yeah, he would. By statute, at least in our state, and I'm sure it's been reaffirmed on the federal level, death row inmates have to be treated like maximum security inmates, no harsher. So you have to provide every accommodation to them with a balance of the security measures that death row inmate has that a max population inmate is afforded. So really, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would be. I don't know, in my opinion, but I don't know what death row looks like in Colorado, and it's gone now. But
It
um,
is. In my opinion, they should have pushed that for a trial because they knew the political climate was changing with the governor whom they have now, that it was going away. Should have pushed it for trial, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, I think so too. So,
Because the
but we,
average the average stay on death row nationwide is 12 years. So, and appeals are automatic. So
Oh, it's
you're
only
still going to
12
have
years? I would have
it's the
thought it would
average.
be longer.
Yeah, well, Texas and Alabama and some states expedite that, but the average
Oh, yeah,
stay is
you're right.
12 years.
You're
Yeah, the
right.
average stay is 12 years. Like California, I think it's 40. I don't, it's crazy, but
Yeah, I
you
guess I
know,
was thinking like California and those that you like
mhm,
just take forever, if it even
they
ever
do.
happens.
If it ever happens, but really, unless there was parties that you were trying to protect a bunch, you should have pushed that to a trial, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. But I don't think Chris wanted all his bad deeds out for the world.
No, no, there was something that was a kind of a strange guy, just from what I can see, and obviously I'm no expert and haven't sat down with him, but there's a lot of hiding and shamefulness to him. Even when Cindy was talking about how when he was young he'd go into the bathroom and repent for whatever. There's something
Yeah.
about that guy where he will go to his grave with a secret.
Yeah.
If he believes it, if he thinks it's shameful, he will bury it forever. Is what I'm picking up on it, in my opinion, of course. But
Well,
it
I
seems
I
that way.
think that a lot of it has to do with what Ronnie might think of him. I think like cuz
Hmm.
he said over and over again like Ronnie's my dad's my best friend, and so I mean, he obviously cares a lot about what his dad might think about him, and I think like I I wouldn't it wouldn't strike me as being okay to
Right.
uh, like do some of the things that I think that he's done.
I think you're definitely right there too. And it almost seems to be a situation. Yeah, your dad can be your best friend and stuff. Mine was. He's gone now, sadly. But also I knew he wouldn't respect me if I didn't become my own man at some point too.
Well, look
And
what happened when he tried to become his own man. Apparently,
yeah,
Ronnie went out and became a cocaine addict.
yeah, very true. Yeah, once he flew the coop, then Ronnie wanted to go get some powder. So yeah, there are coping issues on both sides there.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like one of the stranger aspects of the case. I think that Ronnie was, he's like a cokehead. It just shocks
That
me.
is, I have questions, and I have questions about Chris. About I
Yeah,
think there's a whole bunch of things we don't know and never will. You look at him, and he comes across the way he does, and I'm not stereotyping people or whatever, but then he has those tattoos, which are the complete antithesis of what you see on him. So I'm always trying to figure out that. And when did he get those? That was never brought up.
yeah. Nobody
Did
ever
he?
mentions when he got that
Yeah,
huge Metallica stuff on his
yeah.
back.
I was wondering, did he have those when he met Shanann, or did he get them later? I mean, not that it matters, but perhaps it could. Did he have this little rebellious episode there where he decided to do that? Because otherwise, he's like King Nerd.
Yeah, it
It just
strikes me as
doesn't
maybe
add
a
up.
college thing that he would have done, but Shanann
I could
doesn't
see
strike me
that.
as the type that would be like, "Yeah, cover your back with Metallica."
Exactly. I just don't think that would fit the lifestyle she was trying to portray with all the other stuff. It doesn't add up. It's just I just thought it was a bit odd. You pick up on things here or there.
When I went on my honeymoon with my ex-husband, we went to California, and part of my plan on my honeymoon was I was getting an arm tattoo, like a half
Hmm.
sleeve. And when he saw me do it, then he was like, "Well, I want one," and he had never gotten one before. And when we came back,
Hmm.
his mom looked at me. She goes, "I got him through 35 years without one, Amy." Like, well,
Yeah, I could hear
sometimes.
my mother saying that exactly. Yeah, they were not fans. My dad was an army veteran. He goes, "That's a Navy thing. You didn't serve anywhere. Don't get one." Like, okay, whatever, man. I'm too afraid of needles. I don't want to do that. My wife has them. I do not. And she's a Navy veteran, a retiree. So hey.
Well, your wife is a prosecutor in Wyoming, right?
She is. Yes, yeah. She's a retired Navy lieutenant, a surface warfare officer, and then she went to law school after she got out of the Navy.
That's really impressive.
She's
Very
by far
impressive.
she is definitely the brains of this operation, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we know that Chris Watts was, when he first went to prison, he was put in the Colorado prison, and he wasn't having a good of it in
Hmm.
Colorado. There had been like rumors, like the guys were telling him that he might as well unalive him, just shouting out to him, tormenting him, giving him air trays. What do you think were some, like, can you explain some of these things to us so that we know what this all means? Like, how were they yelling at them? And what are air trays? And
No, air trays. They'll give him an empty chow tray, like an inmate. If they have an inmate janitor who's handing out the food trays, they'll give
Mhm.
him that. They'll short him meals. The way they do it, it's a complicated system. Sometimes it's very interesting. They'll yell it out, of course, and the doors aren't hermetically sealed. Cell doors. You can hear. They're noisy places. I mean, sometimes when we would have inmates going off in a block in segregation, they would kick their cell doors all day. I would walk out of there after a shift and my head felt like it was 50 feet thick and I had my ears would be ringing. They're noisy. There's no peace in a place like that. They'll yell everything they can think of just because, number one, they're bored. And number two, a baby killer is not getting any respect from anybody. They're the lowest of it. They're the lowest of the low. Absolutely. And they don't want any part of that. So, and also they'll throw notes to them, hoping they can read it too. Use a system called phishing where inmates will do that. They use laundry string and throw notes from cell to cell along the floor to send messages if they can. So they'll get their
Aren't those
message
called
across.
kites or something like that?
Yeah, a kite actually is what we called an interview request, and that would be sent to a staff member. You can call those kites, but usually they just call it phishing, and they would send stuff back and forth like that. Messages, contraband, you name it. They'd use laundry string and wrap things up and whip it around or cross tiers. They're pretty accurate. Of course, they have nothing but time to practice.
I wonder if he got any notes from anybody.
I'd be interested to find out. Probably, definitely, I would venture to guess. And of course, he couldn't handle it,
Yeah, of course.
and they transferred him out because the prison's big concern when you have an offender like that is you don't want anything to happen to him. You're not going to like him any better than the inmates do. To be real about it, but he's government property, and you don't want him destroyed. And you don't
Yeah.
want your employer to get sued because attorneys love to sue places like that. They have deep pockets. You're going to get money. That's just how it is. So you got to
Mhm.
protect them as much as you don't want to. Perhaps you have to protect them.
Yeah, it's been like, is he's like more important than most of the other prisoners because you don't want like an Epstein type situation. Although I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
I don't think Epstein unalived himself. I think somebody did it to him.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. Yeah, somebody like Watts is in there. He would be what you would call a high value target.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, he's hot property for predators because they want to make a name for themselves somehow. And like, some big Dahmer got killed in prison. Nobody knows the name of the guy who did it. Nobody cares, but they think they do.
Well, he got unalived in the same prison Chris is in,
He did, yes. Yeah.
which is so
Yes, he
fascinating
did.
to me. And
Absolutely.
so we know that he was moved to Wisconsin prison, and nobody knew that he had been moved. There were rumors stating
Hmm.
that he had been moved, but they moved him like in the middle of the night. Is that common?
Absolutely. Yeah. The first time we had a mass movement of inmates out of our prison due to crowding issues, um, we had to go in for basically another shift, and that big move happened at midnight, and we had a transport company load them up and move them to Texas. 100 inmates out of our facility in the middle of the night.
So Chris probably had no idea that he was being moved.
No. The officers will show up at your door and they'll tell you you're leaving. They'll handcuff. Typically, they would handcuff the offender, pack up their junk for him, and get them on a bus and adios. Yeah, you don't ever want to tell them they're going anywhere. You not even for court. Court they know, they have to know, but doctor's appointments and stuff, you don't want them to have any more notice than is absolutely necessary because of the escape plan situation.
So why is it that, when Lori Vallow was moved to Arizona, why was it like, a whole big thing, like when they were filming her when she came and she was like doing her walk of shame and flicking her hair and going through the detector, like it was just like her big day. Why are some people like, why was it like featured that she was being moved?
I'm not sure why that would be. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know why that would be such a thing, because you don't want that going down in case somebody's going to break somebody out of custody. You can't have that happen. Of course, you do have bad apples in your system amongst your staff. I mean, that's how most the contraband gets in a prison.
Yes.
Is dirty staff. I saw it. I mean,
you did see it.
It is. Plenty. Yeah. Absolutely. Firsthand. I was married to a correctional officer. We got married years. I had been there for years, and then I had married a lady, and then she decided she wanted to go to work there above my objections, and she turned out to be a bad actor. I'll leave it at that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Some people have the intestinal fortitude to work there, and some don't. That's all I'll say.
I don't think I could like stomach it, because I used to have to just go into the prison to do intakes for the substance abuse facility that I worked at, and it was really hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
The smells and it was
yeah.
constant echoes. It was so loud and so bright.
Yes. Yeah. It's yeah, it has a smell to it. I mean, I could smell it on my uniform every day when I would get home. I'd love to change. I'm like, oh my, I got to get the prison off me. It's just, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's a thing. You're correct.
It's like a lot of smells hit you. It's a lot of smells competing with one another all at once. And there's also like this huge, and the one that I went into is this huge, like, bleach cleaning kind of smell, fighting with dirty clothes kind of smell, fighting with bad food, and just a lot of smell.
Greasy carbs, bleach, and BO, and they're all coming at you at once. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a lot.
Yep.
It's absolutely a lot.
Heck yeah.
So we know that he was moved then to Dodge Correctional. And I thought we would listen to Chris and his own words, what life in Wisconsin prison is like for him. This is Parawomenradio, and I'm Amy. Be sure to give this live a thumbs up, guys.
Came back. How was lunch?
It was macaroni and cheese and a bun and some milk. So it was good.
Oh, that's not
it's
bad.
Milk with everything. No. Yeah.
Chocolate milk or?
Okay, so macaroni and cheese, a bun, and milk. Is that a common meal in prison?
Not where I worked. No. Usually they would have some meat with it.
Some
sort. Yeah, some sort of meat, typically. Pretty standard food grouping, though, which is unhealthy, but yeah.
Yeah, lots of unhealthy stuff. I'm sure it's nothing like the good cooking that he used to get.
No,
Even just
not at
even being
all.
able to go to restaurants, like I think the whole food thing would be really hard to deal with in prison.
Absolutely.
Did you
Definitely.
eat
Yeah.
in your prison? Did you eat their food?
Once in a while, but I spent years packing my own lunch, and that was, yeah. And I would typically not eat there.
Not for you, huh?
No, and on night shift, we used to go in and shake down the kitchens, just do security checks. And when you would flip the lights on and watch all the cockroaches run away, that would break you of wanting to eat there on duty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that broke me of that.
Yeah, no, not for me.
Nah.
Regular
I'll
milk.
just regular milk.
Oh.
Chocolate milk's, I guess that's like, I don't know.
Special.
It's a special.
It is a holiday today. You know that.
I know, but I think they had chocolate milk on Christmas. But,
Oh, really?
yeah, they got milk with everything here. So the state. So
Not dairy. The dairy state.
so they got cheese with a lot of stuff too. So
Well, we brought you some non-lactose Powerade if you like it.
seriously?
Yeah. All yours.
Thank you.
So when somebody
That's cool. Thanks.
visits, are they allowed to bring you food or anything?
No.
Probably not. Yeah.
No. No, they're allowed to purchase stuff from the vending machines in the visitor center, in the visiting room where I work, but they weren't allowed to bring anything outside in. No.
Jeff, who I interviewed last Friday, he's an ex-prisoner, and he says you would be wise not to eat prison food.
Absolutely. Yes.
It seems like you would be wise to not even eat like the stuff that you can buy in commissary because it's all like processed. And can you buy fruits and veggies and anything like
No.
that?
No, and where I worked, of course, you couldn't buy them and you couldn't have them because then you have the added ability to make your home brew from any fruit you get.
Oh,
You make, yeah, you make your homemade alcohol with that. You get some fruit and some bread and some sugar, and you're pretty well set up.
gotcha on that one.
Yeah.
Jeff says that they got a lot of their contraband in with drones.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that's a big thing now. Thankfully, they weren't like affordable when I worked in the system, and then two, where I worked, which is still in operation, both facilities where I worked are about 4 miles out of town here and surrounded by a huge expanse that is state property and patrolled, so nobody could really get close enough to do that.
Nobody can get what? Close to it?
No, yeah, nobody could get close enough to do that without being apprehended, so that would stop that, in a very
I did.
barren area.
So gone are the days that somebody can send something through the mail and make it through
Oh no, they
to
still do it
the, oh, it's still,
on occasion now. I don't know what they're running now, but when we built their new facility, they had some new high-tech X-ray scanners and stuff, but I think there's still stuff getting in through the mail. Of course, if that doesn't work, the staff will bring it to them. They'll find somebody.
yeah.
That's the
Well, I
sad part.
imagine the staff probably makes more money from bringing the contraband in than they do for like a couple months or something. I heard it's
Well,
like big
some of
money.
them may. A lot of them would fall prey to the promise that they were going to get paid a large sum of money and then not. And then we had a couple instances where usually female staff members in terrible marriages who would do this. They would be promised this and that. And we had one in particular I remember that escalated to the point where the inmates wanted her to bring a gun in to them. And then she got scared and she told on herself. It usually starts
Well,
with one small thing and then it escalates.
oh, Well, it just seems to me like you wouldn't want to screw over uh, a correction officer, the person that is like got control, like can do harm to you, can cause harm to
Yeah,
you. Can,
yeah, you wouldn't, but it happens more than one might think. When I first started working at the penitentiary, we had two officers, two male officers, who were in a love triangle with a male inmate, and they got fired in a different unit. I didn't know these two cats, but yeah, it was twisted. I don't know
I
what
didn't
people
know
think.
that Dodge's mail goes to Michigan. What does it go to the Jackson prison and get scanned?
That's
Or the
interesting.
Jackson? Would it go to a prison or a post office to get scanned? I don't know.
Hmm.
How does that
Depends
work?
on how the postal service is doing it, but yeah, it goes. The mail here for inmates goes through the postal service, and then into the prison mail room, and that is where it is scanned, X-rayed, um, checked for contraband, all of that stuff. It's pretty extensive mailroom and staff who handles inmate mail here after it's gone through the postal system. Normal
Oh,
routing.
the the staff, do you have to read? Did you have to read every piece of mail or no?
Our mailroom staff would typically spot check that, is the way they put it, or look at anything that wasn't legal mail and looked suspicious they could look at.
Well, I would imagine that Chris's mail is probably flagged more, like read more than any other mail, wouldn't you think? Or one of
Yeah,
the
and that
ones
could
that is
be,
read more.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, we had certain inmates who periodically their mail would be flagged and every piece would be gone through. It wasn't legal mail and protected, which can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only mail that can not be read, I think,
Yeah.
right? And you can't
Yeah.
record
You
them
can't
when they're
even
with
search it.
their lawyer.
No, you can't even search inmates' legal mail. You can look through it in their presence, but you can't read any of it, of course, which
Uh,
is fine. That's the system, and that protects everybody.
I'm surprised they haven't come up with some big scam where they can like get through stuff through because they know that you can't read that stuff. Surprised that
Yeah,
hasn't happened. But
I think it's happened
so
a lot more than people know.
yeah, I think it probably is happening now that I've said it out loud.
Hmm.
In doing the research, I did find this. Hold on, let me see if you're seeing what I'm seeing. You are. I did find this thing on the Dodge Corrections food service because it's been reported that Chris Watts worked in the kitchen slicing meat, and they
Hmm.
called him the meat man. And so I thought we'd look at this really quick.
Just a little
It's
bit.
real cheesy.
I think it helps to be interested in food. Some people might take the job for the benefits or the steady work. For me, food was something I went to school for, so I liked it. I have an associate's degree in culinary arts, a bachelor's degree in food systems technology, and then 10.
So they actually hire chefs to work in the kitchens?
They do, yes, yeah.
That's
Yep.
interesting.
I knew a lady who worked in our kitchen. Actually, she's now a local sheriff's deputy, but yeah, she had a degree in culinary arts, and she started there in our kitchen. Then she decided she wanted to be a corrections officer instead, and now she's with our county.
She didn't want to cook.
10 years of experience in the restaurant
No,
industry. You got to learn how to, feed 2,500 people 3 times a day, and it's a good experience because really.
So this is a tray like so when they say air trays because there's such a deep crevice in here, they were able to make it look like there was food in there and slide it through. Is that
yeah, they would short him on food. They would leave areas blank.
or did
That's
the
what they're
corrections
doing.
officer not even care? They were like, "Yeah, it's empty. Who cares?"
Probably didn't care. Of course,
Yeah.
like when we handed them out, you're wearing gloves, and when we would hand them out to segregation inmates and stuff, We didn't take the cover off them, so really you couldn't tell. And those trays are pretty heavy unless they're really loaded down and one's a lot lighter. You're probably not even going to notice.
Yeah. And we know that Chris likes his food.
They go anywhere at this point. You don't really have downtime here. There's job security. You have good benefits.
God.
You have steady hours. There is room for advancement. Really, you can apply to transfer. You can apply for any position that comes open. Well, you gotta go.
So this is the kitchen, the literal kitchen that Chris would have been working at in Dodge Correctional. It's huge.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice one.
So there have been so many mixed things that have come out about Chris. Like, he's in segregation, he's not in segregation, he lives in a handicap pod, he doesn't live in a handicap pod, he's a janitor, he's a food person. What is he? Like, is he in segregation? Is he not in segregation? What do you think?
I wouldn't see him being in segregation. That's a punishment type thing. Without any disciplinary infractions, there's no reason he should be in segregation. However, then it's a classification issue based on all the testing you do with the inmate when they come in, which I did read Dodge's mission statement, which seems to be their biggest function, is classification for the Wisconsin DOC for their facilities. So then it's a living situation issue of where you can keep him safe and keep others safe from him, although he hadn't demonstrated those propensities when he came in. Main thing there would be to keep him with other like-minded individuals, I guess you could say, and to harmoniously reside together. So it's a housing issue then, a classification and housing issue, but segregation would be for punishment, and I can't see that happening. That would be a clear violation of somebody's rights.
But I can't see how they would possibly keep him safe just walking out in the general population.
I wouldn't see that as a general population situation with this guy. I would guess that he would be in an area with other individuals like himself, typically sex offenders, maybe older, more geriatric inmates that they don't think would kill him. I don't see a dude like that. I can see that. I can't see him being on like a general population San Quentin type yard or something longer than about 40 seconds. Just don't.
Yeah. Do you think he will ever be in any type of situation like that?
Eventually, somebody may slip up and forget as time ticks by. If the media dies down enough on the case, as the years roll by, it's hard to say. That could happen.
Yeah. We have a few questions for you that I've been starring them, you guys. I might have missed some of your questions, but Bad Girl says, is there any truth to Chris having an inmate relationship with another inmate? I think they're talking about, and I do have this in my questions too, the whole thing with the Vaseline and finding the shorts and the other with his name on it in another prisoner's cell. Do you think he's having a relationship with a prisoner, or do you think he literally just loaned things to people?
There is something that tells me he's probably having a relationship with another inmate.
Because you don't just loan things like that, do you?
No. Underwear is a valuable commodity in prison, unless somebody's going to tell me otherwise, at least from everything I saw. And that's awfully sketchy. That would warrant investigation for sure. There's probably something going on there. And I think Mr. Watts, based on what I've seen, and obviously it's only my opinion, but is a very sexually conflicted individual and maybe has been for quite some time.
Yeah, I
That's all I
think
can
that,
say. There's
yeah,
something this guy's trying to keep under wraps, and even on the outside was. I think there's more to this guy than we could ever really see unless he would tell somebody, and I absolutely don't think he ever would admit that.
yeah, I definitely think Chris was an undercover freak that probably had a
Mhm.
substance abuse issue and also was bisexual. So,
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I'm picking up on. There are just some things that kind of make me think that, just based on years of observing human behavior. I'm no psychologist, but
mhm,
that's where it comes
yeah,
from.
okay. Let me get back to that page. I saw Heavenly says, does Chris get his own cell or does he have a roomie?
That depends
Interest.
on how that facility's set up, really. I've seen it both ways where I've worked. So, yeah, I really would be interesting. Would need more information on what their facility is constructed like and classified as, basically.
Yeah, I know he's in a pod situation,
Mhm.
but I don't know in that situation does he have a roommate or not. And I think in that pod situation, he doesn't even go to a chow hall. The food is brought to him.
That could very well be. That's been a real change in the past probably 30 years of corrections where they're trying to do that more localized. It cuts down on the likelihood of a large inmate uprising when you don't have hundreds all massed in one area. It makes
Yeah,
perfect sense. You cut those numbers down from say 300 to 80, it's a lot better for your staff to manage.
yeah, I would think so too. And it seems like it would be maybe even more comfortable for the prisoners.
Definitely, especially in a climate such as, well, Wyoming's harsh. With inmates used to have to go distances across a long, open yard in the weather to a chow hall. If you don't have to get out in the weather, Wyoming, Wisconsin, places like that, I think it would be more comfortable.
Yeah, I think so too. Um, Terry Butts says, and I'm pretty sure they were joking, but it was one. It corresponds with one of my questions, and they say, "Is he being haunted by his family?" But my question was, in your prison that you worked in, were there any paranormal stories that you had?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there were instances of things that made you wonder. You hear a lot of strange noises at night when like everybody in a pod was asleep, you know. We had down where death row was, where I had begun my career, we had an inmate who had hanged himself there
Uh
years
huh.
before, and it was always rumored to be haunted. And working night shift down there, you would hear strange noises occasionally, and you had like two guys who lived down there, and they were both asleep at the time. So who knows? It's not provable, but highly likely, in my opinion. It depends on your beliefs.
I
I
believe.
believe that places store energy, is how I look
Me
at it.
too. Yeah, especially prisons.
Hmm.
Um, Someone Jeff says that if he's in a pod, there are two men's cells that they cram 3 to 4 in, and then
Yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier too when that question was brought up. Likely at least two, because most states and most facilities have such a crowding problem. I think the days of single cells, unless it's a disciplinary unit, are going to be over.
would he be given his own? Because I don't see who said it, but someone said something about him being a celebrity. Would they give him his own cell because he's well known?
No, the only reason they give him his own cell is because they didn't want a cellmate to unalive him.
That would make him even more hated, I would think, to give him his own
That
cell.
would because then people would be pissed because he had his own cell because he's a dirty child unaliver. That's how they would
Yeah.
look at it. Correct.
Yes. Um, there was one other. Somebody said something else. You guys, if you ask the questions, I missed them. Just ask them again, and I'll see them because I've missed them. So I've heard I in doing the research, then there was a lot of information about Dodge Correctional, and this was just like it wasn't COVID or anything like that. Just 9 months ago, they were going through a lockdown. The inmates' families were voicing concerns, and then they were saying it was a nightmare. And then in the lockdown, the inmates began protesting. Um, do you think that Chris is taking part in the inmate protests and all of that kind of stuff?
I can't see him doing that. I just don't see him having the guts unless he's being a good sheep and following in with the rest of the crew. And they're probably on lockdown due to staffing issues. I know our state has gone through that recently. So I've been told by current staff members because they can't keep staff. So you have to start cutting services. And even when I was a watch commander, I would have days where we couldn't open the library because I didn't have an officer to man it. You have to start, closing the gym because my recreation officer wasn't there and I had nobody to replace him. Things like that. And I've heard a lot of these systems are going through that due to staffing levels.
Yeah, that would make sense because there was the protest, and then they mentioned that that the jailers lack of jailers amongst crisis level in Wisconsin. So it just sounds like a pressure cooker to me that's happening.
It is. It is. It's not an easy job. It is, but it's not. I'll put it this way. We used to call it 99% boredom and 1% sheer terror. It's monotonous, and it's not a happy place to go. Just let's face it. You go there every day, and it's not a happy place. No, the people who live there don't want to be there. And a lot of the staff are bitchy because they don't really think they want to work there anymore. It's not a good place to go. You just have to have a mind for it. And I don't even know how to explain what makes somebody capable of working there and staying there. Just you either can or you can't. I've seen it.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a sink or swim type of job.
It is, yeah.
So
Average
there's been
correctional officer's career is less than 2 years.
oh
Which is,
oh
yeah,
wow.
it's a short-lived endeavor for most. It just is.
I was reading some of the amount that some correctional officers are making, and it's not a bad wage.
No, these guys are making killer money now. We were making $8 an hour when I started.
Yeah, they were like the if you would have been in the position you were in now, it just seems like you would have made a lot of money because they were
Oh
making
yeah,
top level like at 100,000. I mean, to me that's a lot
yeah.
of money. So
I could make 100 a year in that level easy. I was topped out when I left. Expert level pay grade for my position, and I was making 65, and that was back in 2005. So I'd be making some coin now.
there's been rumors that Chris has been transferred because he's no longer on in the prison registry. What can we learn from that? Why wouldn't his name be on the prison registry?
Could be a transfer. Most likely, they give him a new name in their records, and that can happen. I personally know of one we had who committed a heinous crime in South Dakota, and we got him, and he had a new name. I didn't know what his real last name is until his parents came to visit him, and I saw the IDs, and I'm like, wait, they're his parents, and they have a different name. And I looked up his first name with their last on the internet and found out who this dude was.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting. So
yes, this
just
guy had
listing something
this
different.
guy. Yeah, this guy had killed his 5-year-old daughter. He was in a custody dispute with the mother. I'm sorry, unalived. I'm not used to using that term, but
It's okay.
I do understand. He had committed that crime and gotten by with it. They just thought it was a horrible house fire until he was incredibly drunk and he confessed it to an internet chat group and they turned him in. It
Oh my gosh.
was the first time the internet was ever used in court as evidence to convict somebody.
Well, they probably thought that was new, fancy, schmangled kind of
It
evidence.
was. Yeah, we're talking like 2000, 2001. So, yeah, it was dial-up days evidence.
They're using the stuff on the weird wide web.
But yeah, with Chris Watts there, they could have transferred him somewhere under secrecy, which is, they can do. Or they simply don't list him because they don't want the attention to their facility and the headaches that come with it. And that's probably most likely, I would guess.
I wonder where they would transfer him to if they transferred him. Like, who would want him? Where would he be safe?
Nobody. Based upon my experience, at least with our system, we had different areas where we could transfer them. State of Wyoming had an agreement at the time with 8 other states. It's called an interstate
Oops,
compact agreement.
Can you guys hear him? Because this happened to me last time. I couldn't hear the guest in the middle of it, but later I learned that I'm going to take you. Wait, I don't even see you in my backstage. Hold on a second. Hello?
Hello.
Okay, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. No worries.
Something happened. They're saying they could hear you, but something happened last time where it pops and then I can't hear you, but I can hear you now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, like I was saying, with our system, we had an agreement with 8 other states to transfer inmates to and from, called an interstate compact agreement. And my state also received money from the feds to operate to house federal prisoners, so we could move inmates through that system back and forth as well. So there are quite a few options depending on what their DOC has set up, and they may utilize private prisons now too, which was a thing that came into being over the course of my career, and we use them as well. So there's no telling where this guy could actually be if he's not in Wisconsin.
Would they have to tell his family where he is?
After they typically, I don't think they had a duty to do that. They would allow the inmate to contact their family after they were moved, from my recollection, but certainly not before, obviously, because you have the breakout risk. So that could happen.
So he could have been moved after all.
He could
just be listed under a different name.
You could list him under a different name, or they could just not list him.
Or
as part of public record, they may not list him due to safety and security concerns is all they need to really cite. And unless somebody would challenge that in court, there's nothing they can do about it. Safety and security overrules every other concern.
Hey friends, I just want to take a moment and ask you, are you subscribed to Parawomenradio? Because I looked the other day and I saw that over 50% of you that are coming and hanging out and visiting, you're not. And sometimes you don't know you're not subscribed. Sometimes you forget you're not subscribed. So if you could just take a moment to check and see if you're subscribed. If you are, fantastic. I'm so happy. And if you're not, it's just a free way to help my channel out. Subscribe. If you don't like me, you can unsubscribe. No problems at all. So this is so interesting about Chris in prison, and I have heard too that he was attacked. And what do you believe there's any validity to that he was attacked?
I do. Yeah, I could absolutely see that.
You do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. He would be a big target for somebody thinking they're going to make their bones and make a big name for themselves. It's a different way of thinking in that society, which is what it is. It's its own society, and I wouldn't doubt it one bit.
Just a lot of time for people to plot and plan and watch and wait.
Absolutely, and nothing better to do. I used to tell staff members that all the time, and they're always looking for something. They got 24 hours a day to watch what we do,
Yeah.
and then that's it.
And it was like rumored that like when he was attacked, it was because like he was being transferred within the prison, which meant he was going through like a welcome center or some kind of center, and they said that's when you're the most vulnerable. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, in our facility, they called it the fish tank because new inmates are what they call fresh fish. So they called the fish tank for slang. It's called assessment and orientation, and it is a very vulnerable area because all these people haven't really been evaluated and classified yet. You don't really know what you're working with and where to house them, so it'll be a very volatile area.
Just a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard to like watch.
Absolutely, and you don't know the behavior patterns as a staff member of these new inmates because you don't know them. You only know what you can read, what paperwork comes with them for you to consume. You learn a lot more by observing somebody day to day and talking to them a little bit on a human level. When they're new to you, you have no idea. It's like a police officer on a traffic stop where they don't know who they're walking up to. Same kind of thing. You don't know what they're about.
Hmm. What do you think is Chris's future in the prison system? What do you foresee happening to Chris Watts?
I think he'll be bounced around a few places, transferred around a few places, and I think if he can play Mr. Helpful and the good guy long enough, he'll remain probably maximum security in some system due to the sentences he carries, but maybe like I've seen it where he had maximum security inmates who would be janitors in premium areas like the infirmary areas that are more comfortable for them to be around. I could see something like that happening. I could see him kissing butt where he could get a premium inmate job somewhere, a little more relaxed supervision, and just put his head down and go about doing his thing. And he's probably comfortable in prison. I just say that because he doesn't have any real decisions to make anymore, and he seems to be suited for it.
Mm-hmm. He
I knew
does
a
seem
guy just like
really
that.
comfy. He likes the Dodge Correctional quite a
Mhm.
bit. He said it.
I knew a guy like that. I worked with a guy, an officer who decided he was going to unalive his ex-girlfriend, and he wanted to stay and live in the facility where he had just worked, and they let him do it. He seemed happier being an inmate than he did as being an officer.
Really?
Yeah, he seemed more relaxed. Just keep his head down, do his thing, be a good sheep. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can see Watts being that way. He likes to be led around by the nose, or so it would appear, until
Yes.
he doesn't. And yeah, I could see that playing out.
Somebody had said to me that Chris Watts he and his family will be bled dry. Like there will be prisoners, if they can get to him, they'll be like, you need to give me like $30 a week so that you don't get harmed or something like that. Can you see that happening? Like you need to ask your family to do this and that and just bled dry till he dies, they said.
I could see that, and where I could see that really coming into play is if he is housed in an area where there's a big gang presence and he feels he needs protection from gang members.
Uh-huh.
Say he had a Sertaños or Norteños, Mexican mafia threatening him, and he had like an Aryan Brotherhood person come up to him and offer him protection, that kind of scenario, I could see him probably falling for that.
Yeah.
I just could, because I don't think he just comes across as so soft, even with what he was convicted of doing. It's really a dichotomy there. It's that's what makes it so interesting to me.
I agree that he would fall for something like that and be like, "Okay, I'll give you everything I got
I could
and
see that. Yeah.
my underwear."
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I could see that playing out. Him feeling threatened. You put a little heat on him, and he's worried he's going to get bumped off, and
Mm-hmm.
it
And
would
he'll
probably be two guys playing the same game,
probably,
both profiting. Yeah,
and then
I
he'll
could see
tell his
that.
mom and dad, and his mom and dad will be so worried for him.
Oh yeah, put more money on my books, and then he's buying
Yeah.
all these commissary is what would happen. He's
Yeah.
buying extra commissary and giving it away. I could see that.
I could see it too, actually.
Hmm.
I like to watch Marcy Marie on the prison rec yard that they do, and
Hmm.
they mentioned that, like, in the women's prison, like, even women that who unalive their children, they kind of like, once once the women know, they kind of just get on with it. They said, and they don't like torment them too much, like their life isn't all
Hmm.
wrapped up in that. But why is it different on the men's side? Because I've heard, like, on the men's side it's just different. They just torment
Hmm.
them to till the
Yeah,
end of their
and
days.
I think it's just the code that men are perceived as supposed to, having been raised with, that you are the protector of what is most precious, and especially children. And
Yeah.
I think it's the ingrain of that doesn't let that drop in the male population. Nor do I think I don't think that should drop, but I think that's why you see the difference is you are absolutely supposed to be the protector of your wife and your children, and especially the innocent ones, the children. Or at least that's how I was raised. Now I don't know, but
That
I think
makes
that is
sense.
it. From a sociological standpoint, I think that is really the difference.
That makes sense. As we come towards the end of the show, I want to ask you, what did the correction officers personally feel about inmates like Chris Watts? Like, what did you guys say about them? Like, when you were just sitting in the office and just chatting?
Most of which I can't repeat in this company, but nothing good. Certainly, the only value I ever saw in a person like Chris Watts, and I'll be brutally honest here, was that oftentimes they made great snitches for me.
Snitches.
Yeah, they would give me good information typically because they knew that they needed y'all to protect them from the other inmates. So a lot of times it would be a good rat line for you, but the officers don't like him any more than the rest of the inmates. There's absolutely no use for him.
Interesting. So it's there. Chris could be being used as a snitch for the officers for the inmate population.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Really?
They were good sources for us typically. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then that would make him even more hated because the population would know eventually that he was snitching, right? Because they always find
yeah,
out, don't they?
yeah. If that ever got out, you couldn't get him out of your facility fast enough before something happened to him. Yeah,
Is there
yeah.
anything that you think that I haven't asked that the audience would be very fascinated by?
Trying to think. I can't really think of anything. Not really. I would just remind the audience to um, be concerned about the state of the correctional systems in this country for the inmates and the staff. 90%, statistically, 90% of inmates are going to re-enter society someday.
Yep.
They're in, and I was on the other side, but I'll tell you right now, they're not learning anything constructive by what our system does with them. Absolutely not. It's a big warehouse of hatred most of the time, and they're understaffed, and the prison industrial complex in this country has a huge problem they're going to have to face. And taxpayers should be concerned about it. Taxpayers usually don't hear about it unless there's a riot or something. You never think about the prison system. You just hope to keep them locked up, which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a big mess. This country is really going to have to face. It's concerning where your tax dollars go and how much is being wasted ineffectively in that area. But I digress. There are so many areas that's true. So, it is a concern. I don't work in the system anymore. Obviously, it is a concern to me, and I see the suffering that people go through who work there and the stuff that never leaves you. And I can only imagine all these people we're turning back out on the street who have PTSD from being in prison, just like the guys who work there.
Yeah.
It's a concern.
It is a huge concern. And when I say prison reform, they're like, don't let people out of prison. And I'm like, they're getting out of prison. What I'm saying is teach them how to be when they get out of prison while they're in prison.
Correct. You need effective reentry programs for people. If you take a guy who's been locked up for 30 years now and expect him to get out and be able to use an iPhone and Uber Eats and all this crap they didn't have when he was in there, he would feel overwhelmed and want to go back. I've had inmates tell me that. I couldn't handle it. I wanted to go back here.
Well, yeah,
it's
teach them life skills, teach them mental health, learn about themselves, teach them about, like, help them with their education, because that's not even happening half the time,
No, because they're all short staffed in a lot of these systems. They're taking people who sign on to work in a prison as a teacher and turning them into an officer because they don't have enough officers. So your programs are unavailable because of security staffing levels. It is a huge problem we have. And I feel for the inmates. I do. I can see it. I wouldn't want to live there and go through that. They're humans, and they do have human rights, just like we all do. And most offenders are going to be on the streets again.
Yep.
And they're not being done right by, in my opinion. Just not.
Yeah. Velveteen Rabbit asks that if they don't like him, why would they trust him as a snitch?
Because where else are you going to get your information?
And I would trust him as a snitch because he's such a wuss.
Yeah. If he needs protection badly enough, and he won't lie to you because it'll make it worse on him. Then you could disciplinary charge him for lying to you, and he could face sanction for that. So, yeah. You don't have to like him, but if they're going to give you info, I don't have to like a guy if he's going to give me information I can use.
Yeah.
You just want to do your job.
Jacqueline wants to know that how do people who are claustrophobic how are they able to stand it in tiny cells? Has there ever been a problem where the guy's like, I just can't take it?
Yeah, they get medicated. Usually they're over that by the time they get to the state level where I work, because they've gone through the county system. So usually medication, they'll end up doing what they call the Thorazine shuffle. Sleep all day. Yeah, you can tell. Yeah. I've seen guys who would freak out badly enough where we would have to go in there and hold them down so nurses could inject them, but they'll get handled. Medication.
Yeah. Or they come in with those, like that team that you were on.
Yeah, you suit up and go do it. Yeah. Yeah, if they're bad enough, you go in there and you do a cell extraction, is what they call it. You extract
Well,
them out of the
another
cell.
thing that's happening to our system is we've closed all the mental hospitals, and so they're
Mhm.
going into our prison system now, and the prison system is
Absolutely.
not equipped to handle that, and they're having to deal with it.
This is hilarious, and it's true. Yeah. On at least two occasions, myself and another officer drove an inmate over from our state penitentiary to Evanston, Wyoming, where the state hospital is, and it's about 300 miles. It's not a short trip. And we would drop this guy off, and they would have him for a couple of days, and then they'd make us go get him because they couldn't handle him. Like my state, we have no facilities for the criminally insane. By definition, we do not. So they go to the prison. They're
Hmm.
too they're insane enough but too disruptive to be in the state hospital, and they're too insane to be in the penitentiary. So you you're gonna medicate them and have to go in there and do a cell extraction on them when they're way out of control. It's not always humane.
No.
It's not right. It's not effective. I'll put it that way.
How do you feel about them getting things like iPads and just all these perks that they have now? How do you feel about that?
I think that it can be good on one hand if they're depends on classification level and how much time they have left. If a guy's doing 50 years, is he really going to get out and need to know an iPad, which will probably be way obsolete when he gets out? No. The problem I have with that is it's good to teach them, new technologies and everything. Is the security that you have to keep them from doing bad things with it. Just like the internet as a whole, the internet is one of the greatest inventions we've ever had, can be for human learning and growth, and it can also be one of the most detestable inventions ever for the bullying and hatred you see that is spread. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I think it's a way for the prison to make money for themselves because they charge per email and they probably charge per show that they watch and stuff like that. I think it's just
I
a
could
way
see
for the
that.
prison to earn money.
Yes, as much money as it costs these states to and facilities to operate, I could definitely see that they're trying to offset some operational costs through a revenue stream. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, guys, I think that might be all the questions I have for Dan. Dan, would you be interested in joining me on another live? Um,
Absolutely, I'll try to pencil it into my busy retired guy schedule. I think I can make it.
what are you doing these days? I know you have your own fitness company.
I do that. I do online personal training at the moment. I did some online. I've been a certified trainer since 2012. I've been into bodybuilding since 1989. Been a competitor. I was a nationally qualified competitor in bodybuilding. So I really moved online when COVID happened. I used software platforms and developed custom nutrition and fitness programs for people. And other than that, I am retired. I ended up having to go on a disability after back surgery last year
Ugh.
because I could not get back to. I was working a part-time job for a local city here that I really enjoyed, but I had a complication from back surgery where they couldn't put a spacer in between my vertebra because a nerve was in the way, so I had to rely on rods and screws for the bone fusion. So it finally took me out of action as far as that goes. So I just kind of like I tell people, they ask me, "What do you do?" I said, "Kind of whatever I want." You know, just it. I have a My latest passion is RC vehicles. That is my handle. I'll tell the audience where my handle comes from. Cowboys, because I'm a Wyoming native, complete native, lifelong resident. I'm from the Cowboy State, representing my alma mater there and my University of Wyoming hat. And RC is for RC is for my love of radio control vehicles. I took that hobby up after I had back surgery to give me something to do because I couldn't mountain bike anymore. So that's what I do. I spend a lot of time building and customizing radio control vehicles, and I work out every day still and develop plans. And we have 5 English bulldogs, my wife and I, so they keep me busy.
I
We have a
love
kennel permit.
bulldogs.
Oh, I love them. We have a kennel permit, and it started with one who was my absolute sidekick baby, and now we have 5. So
Aw.
I stay pretty busy. And my elderly mother lives 2 blocks away, and I do all the yard work and stuff for that. As my dad, when he was dying, asked me to, was to promise him that I would always take care of my mother, and by golly, that's what I do. So I stay busy.
Sounds like a nice little life.
It is. I have plenty of hobbies, genealogy vehicles. I play the guitar, so I always have something to do.
How fun. Well, good. Then we'll plan another live real soon. Thank you so
Sounds
much for
good.
being here.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate it so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That was Cowboy RC, aka Dan. And Cowboy RC is actually a pioneering male in the dragonflies. He's a dragonfly. Woo woo. The dragonflies, for those that don't know, are the memberships on Parawomen Radio. I invite you to join. I would love to have you. We have 3 new dragonflies that just joined, the Cat's Life, Crystal Harris, and Missing in Maine. Welcome to the Dragonfly Club. We're so happy to have you. I release videos early to the Dragonflies. Um, we're talking about getting together and watching the Gypsy Rose series. So we do special things together. I do shout outs and just bunch of other little things for my dragonflies, and I love my dragonflies, and I hope that you will consider being a dragonfly. It's $2.99 and that gets you everything. So guys, I've had a really great night. I'm so happy that you've all been here with me. I see that the chat has been very chatty. I see Jacqueline and I see Megan, and I see the Cat's Life, and I see Jeff, and I see Heavenly, and the Velveteen Rabbit, and Real Killers. Hi, Real Killers, and Terry, and just a lot of you in here. If I missed anybody, I just scrolled up for a little ways. Thank you guys for being here. It's so great to see you in here. I'm going to get ready to go. Don't forget to give this live a thumbs up. I love you guys so, so much. It's Friday night, and I'm calling out to you to think of one dream that you've always wanted to follow, and then start to follow it. Big or small, I will lead by my own example, and I want you to follow me by following your own dreams or dreams. Your dreams are your compass, and my melody is your guide. Don't forget the wisdom of this message, you guys, for it's in the fascinating journey of your dreams that's what shapes you. And I think you guys are beautiful and worthy of following your dreams. And I would love, love, love to see you guys climb up and follow your dreams with me. If nobody's told you this today, I'm telling you this. I love you guys so, so much. I'm so grateful for you. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys. Hi, guys. Welcome to Parawomenradio. I'm Amy.
Angel flew down to a tiny house on the edge of hell. Ain't no garage or a swimming pool, just a sad old friend who thinks he's cool. Angel knocks twice. She says, let me in. And then his withered old face says, where have you been? Where have you been? She says, hello. Aren't you tired of this? Tired of being here in the dark like this? Like this. And he says, no, I don't miss the light. I don't need a thing, can you say tonight?